Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and I hope that you are going to have a productive and beautiful week. Welcome to this week. Welcome to this week's new video, and I come to you with a brand new series. This week we're basically speaking about relationships, but we are speaking about the legal consequences of relationships. And we are going to start with engagement. What happens with engagements? Do we have laws that govern engagement? And what really is engagement in the eyes of the law? So let's get to it. Guys, we did some reading for this week, just for this week's video. We did reading with Summer. I'll show you a picture of him reading as well while he was sleeping while I was reading, but doesn't matter. Anyways, so let's speak about engagement. What is engagement? When does it start? Do we have laws that govern it? Okay, first of all, in South Africa, we do not have a statutory law that governs statutory provision that governs engagement. What do I mean by that? I mean, we do not have an act like Marriages Act, Customary Marriages Act, acts like that specifically are for engagement. Oh my gosh, monkeys are on the roof. That is specifically for engagement. We don't have that, but we do have common law. So what is common law? Common law would be laws that are decided by courts regarding the particular issue at hand when it doesn't have a statutory provision. This is just a basic brief and an overview of what exactly is our law and the differences and what we have when it comes to engagement. Okay, because we do not have that in writing as with other stuff, when is a person actually engagement? What is engagement? An engagement is a promise to marry. If somebody makes a promise that at some point, one day, maybe 5 years from now, I will get married to you. That's a fulfillment of the requirement of engagement. It is a promise to marry. What does a promise to marry mean? Do we have any consequences when that promise to marry is broken? Somebody asked me once, if somebody says on a WhatsApp message and says, does that constitute an engagement? It actually, in my view, it actually does, because what if you were to then prove that engagement, you need to have proof that the person had intention. Because there's nothing that states engagement should be one on a knee and asking you to marry you with a ring. Doesn't say that. The moment that you can prove intention, in most cases, in most things, it would be you saying that this person had intention to marry me and he asked me on WhatsApp, and thereafter we started preparing for Mshato, or we started doing this and that in order to prove Gutu to Funu Mshata. So that happens in the unfortunate circumstances in the unfortunate circumstance where there is a breach of that promise. Do you then ask a person to pay damages for the fact that they didn't marry you when you wanted to get married, when they promised to get married to you? What are the consequences of actually not getting married to the person that you've actually promised to marry? Here I'm not speaking about the different kinds of engagements of customary laws. That's a different story. We'll speak about types of marriages next week on Thursday. Yeah, we'll speak about types of marriages on Thursday. What do you need to prove, or what does the court actually look at when it's granting you damages for your breach of promise? So let's look at case law. I'll link the full cases here on the video. In Jaarsveld versus Bridges in 2010, the SCA, being the Supreme Court of Appeals, appeals or appeal? Supreme Court of Appeal. Basically the highest court on appeals besides on constitutional matters. We'll talk about that some other time, but let's speak about this. Here, this claimant being Miss Bridges, Miss Bridges, because it's now an appeal, she was granted in the court below, but here, this one is now, being the boyfriend, is now appealing the matter. So what happened here, she sued for damages, namely on injure and breach of contract. Injure, it's you claiming that you have a delictual claim against this person because what they said is insulting to you. So Bridges wanted to claim that and also claim a breach of contract. Cloete, we had an agreement that you will marry me, but you didn't. The agreement was to marry in 2006 when they got engaged in 2005. However, 2005, this certain Mr. V decided to send Ubi ama SMS and say, nope, I can't deal with this marriage anymore, bye-bye. The court, in answering the question of contractual damages, it said that breach of promise could only lead to sentimental damages if it is in a delictual sense. It was wrongful. The act of the breakup was wrongful, and the act of breaking up was actually offensive in nature. And so if the words that are sent do not give rise to an insult, are not insulting in their nature or offensive and affecting the self-esteem of the addressee, then you can't claim for damages just because umuntu uthe ahlukane. Because in a later case in 2013, where the parties had agreed to get married to each other at a reasonable time, but 10 years later they ended up not being married, and at the 10-year mark the other party, being the boyfriend, the fiancé, said, no, I don't want to get married to you, and the other party then claimed for financial damages. The name of this case is Cloete versus Maritz. Cloete versus Maritz. I'll link it here as well. 10 years later, the guy found somebody else and said, I no longer want to get married to you. And then this person was then claiming that they will lose financial benefits of enjoying the immovable property that they would have shared should they be married, and the financial maintenance that would have been received should they be married. Defendant raised a plea saying that financial benefits are no longer available in South African law. So for you to claim ukuthi umuntu would have wanted you, would have maintained you should you guys have been married, is actually no longer something that we take into consideration in South African law. And the court, in the sense here, upheld the special plea to say that a person should be held accountable to engagement where just because of contractual damages does not reflect the bon mores of the society right now. So one's failure to keep the promise to marry should not make that person. So when you hold a person liable for their failure to, contractually liable for contractual damages in that sense, you broke a contract, could lead to parties entering into marriages that they do not want to enter into, that in good conscience would not want to enter to, just to avoid paying for somebody imali yokuthi you ended up not being married to them. To answer the question of ukuthi, can you claim for ukuthi umuntu ukwalile after having promised you engagement? You can't claim for ukuthi umuntu ukwalile and in turn, because one would want to avoid ukukushada just because one would avoid ungakushadi just because they don't want to pay money for stupid stuff like pay money for utakakshati basically. But one could be held liable for things like damages for you having paid money for planning of the marriage. I can't remember the case law, but we did deal with it when I was in second year of varsity. That's why I had to go back to reading, because we did family law in second year, which specifically dealt with engagement, because at varsity practice you deal mostly with divorce and maintenance. Anyways, I digress. When a party has suffered a financial loss due to planning maybe of the engagement, or one has been unjustifiably enriched because of the engagement, such as you buying you not gifts but getting together stuff just because you are engaged, you can claim for things like that. But you can't simply claim for Guti. We would have been married and I would have gotten imali yokwenza ukuthi nokuthi nokuthi. Should we have been married? Because the court will not grant you that order, simply because they might end up with people that are married and not wanting to get married. What are the requirements for getting engaged? As I've stated, that there is no specific thing like ukuthi fanele bekhona iring. However, if you are going to end up getting married, you must meet the requirements for ukshada. What are those requirements? 1, you have to be of consenting age, being 18 in South Africa. And if you are not of the consenting age, your parents may consent for you. So basically, mengabe sekufika isikhathi sokushada, uzosayinela uma wakho ngazi ujaheni uzosayinela abazali nje. And then the second one is that you have mental capacity. So mental capacity is still very important. And in terms of the Marriages Act, if you're going to end up being married in terms of marriage law and not a civil union, a marriage is between a man and a woman. That statutory has not changed. However, you can get married to the same sex if you are not necessarily married, but okay, yeah, it is concluded in terms of the civil union. You can get married in terms of Civil Union Act as a man and a man, or a female and a female. And then your marriage, should it take place, it will be solemnized by a person who is legally appointed and authorized by the act. So umuntu okushadisayo, be mindful of ukuthi is it somebody who has a certificate okushadisa or not. I mentioned that you can have the consent of your parents, and if your parents refuses ukushadisa, you can get consent of Minister of Home Affairs or the High Court, being the upper guardian. Those are things that you need to look at. So are you of a consenting age, being 18 and above? If not, are your parents consenting to you getting married? 3, what else? 3, do you have mental capacity? 4, are you, what else? Are you guys in mutual agreement? You can't get married to a person. You can't be engaged to a person without accepting the offer to marry. In the same sense, you can't then be, because the outcome of engagement is getting married. So you cannot then not have consented mutually to the Getting Married Act. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys will then, before getting engaged next week or 2 weeks from now, are going to consider the requirements of ukshada, of engagement, and requirements of ukshada that we will discuss on Thursday. Bye.